is a 1970s International Lodestar that I picked up a few months ago now. Actually, I think I've owned it for over a year now, but I only got it back here a couple months ago.
You won't believe the shocking truth behind Matt Stetar's crazy success at Diesel Creek. It's all because of an unexpected disaster at his dream job. Matt once had everything handed to him, but instead he chose dirt, rust, and grease. He turned his back on easy living and fought hard to fix broken machines no one else wanted. Tune in now because you're about to see how one rusted piece of junk almost cost Matt everything. Trading a desk for diesel. Back in the day, Matt was not dreaming about turning wrenches and getting his hands dirty. He grew up in a stable home, went to a Catholic high school in West Virginia, and had the chance to do just about anything. But books and classrooms were not his thing. He was the type of kid who wanted to build something, make things with his hands, and figure out how stuff worked. That curiosity led him straight into the world of heavy machinery. And little did he know, that same curiosity would one day put him face to face with the kind of trouble no wrench could fix. His first step was welding school. Instead of going the traditional college route, Matt took a more hands-on approach. He picked up a welding torch and started learning the skills that would later become the foundation of his career. Welding was just the start, leading him to construction jobs, landscaping work, and eventually to heavy equipment. One of his first jobs had him building retaining walls and clearing land.
School in West Virginia, 4 years of Catholic school there, but they didn't. I wanted to do like a VOTEC program or like a welding program or something,
But he quickly realized he wanted to do more. He wanted to operate the big machines, not just work around them. That was when he took the leap and bought his first piece of equipment. Even though his job paid well, he was not satisfied. Something was missing. The real turning point came when he decided to leave that security behind and chase what really made him tick. After hopping between jobs in machine shops, steel plants, and road construction, Matt finally found his calling. But life had a way of throwing curveballs. Just when he thought he had landed a steady job making steel additives at the same company his dad had worked at years ago, the offer got pulled at the last minute. No warning, no explanation, just gone. That is the kind of thing that could shake a person's confidence. But instead of giving up, Matt went back to what he knew best, fixing things. He returned to the repair shop that had given him his first real taste of machinery work and kept on learning. He did not stop there. His journey took him to a transformer plant where he worked on massive electrical components, then back to road construction. By the time he was in his early 20s, he had gathered enough experience to join a union, giving him new opportunities and better pay. But the real story was just getting started. Matt's path was not a straight line. He kept moving from one job to another, picking up new skills along the way. From road work to pipelines, every step brought him closer to what he was truly passionate about.
I want to say he's been in business 35 years now,
Really?
something like that.
Isn't it just crazy how people can find the most random niche and be super successful at it?
Well, at the time when he started his business, he was one of the few.
Then the internet came into play. Back in the year 2011, Matt started posting videos online, at first just messing around with dirt bikes and extreme vehicles. It was all just for fun. By the year 2019, things had shifted. He realized people were interested in what he was doing, especially when it came to heavy equipment and fabrication. Diesel Creek was born. Unlike many other content creators who focus on making their channels into big brands, Matt is not about that life. He does not push merchandise, does not try to build an empire, and is not looking to expand beyond what he already does. He is just a guy who loves working on old machines, and that honesty is what keeps people coming back. It is not about getting rich or famous, it is about the love of the work. That love is what makes Diesel Creek stand out. One of his biggest projects yet is restoring a vehicle from the year 1964, a classic that had been sitting in a barn for decades. Most people would look at it and see nothing but a pile of rust and dust. But Matt sees something else, a story waiting to be uncovered. With every bolt he turns and every panel he restores, he is not just fixing a car. He is breathing life back into a piece of history. His audience is right there with him, watching every step of the way. The best part is that Matt does not rush. He takes his time, treating every piece with care and making sure the job is done right. He respects the process, knowing that each dent, Each faded mark tells a story. He does not erase the past, he honors it.
Whoever you're comparing me to. So it's just, I'm going about it in a genuine way. I'm trying to do everything to be transparent, explain what I'm doing.
That is what makes his work so special. He is not just fixing things. He is preserving history, one project at a time. Matt's journey from a kid who just wanted to work with his hands to a well-respected name in the heavy machinery world did not happen overnight. It took years of trial and error, learning from experience, and following his instincts. But now he has found his niche. He is doing what he loves, sharing it with the world, and proving that passion and persistence can take a person places they never expected. His dedication to restoration does not stop at just machinery. Every single part of his process is documented, from dragging a rusted-out truck from the weeds to painstakingly cleaning and rebuilding every little component. Whether it is a forgotten piece of construction equipment, an old bulldozer buried in mud, or a truck from the 1980s that has not seen the road in decades, Matt tackles each project with the same level of excitement and care. His audience does not just watch because of the machines, they tune in because of the journey. Every machine he works on has a story behind it. Maybe it was abandoned because of an engine failure. Maybe it was left to rot after an owner passed away. Or maybe it was simply considered outdated and scrapped. Whatever the reason, Matt digs into the past, uncovering the history of these machines as he brings them back to life. One of the biggest reasons Matt's content resonates with people is his straightforward, no-nonsense approach. He does not overcomplicate things. If something is broken, he shows exactly what went wrong. If a part needs replacing, one of the biggest reasons Matt's content resonates with people is his straightforward, no-nonsense approach. He does not overcomplicate things. If something is broken, he shows exactly what went wrong. If a part needs replacing, he explains why. There is no flashy editing or staged drama, just real work being done by someone who loves what he does. Second chances on six wheels. Diesel Creek is the kind of YouTube channel that grabs you by the collar and drags you into a world of rust, grease, and some serious heavy iron. He does not just tinker, he tears things apart, figures out what went wrong, and brings them back to life with a mix of skill, stubbornness, and sheer willpower. Take that 1957 autocar truck, for example. This thing had been sitting so long it was practically part of the landscape. Most folks would have walked away, but not Matt. He dove in head first, ripping into engine problems, battling a braking system that was more rust than metal, and wrestling with bodywork that looked like it had been through a war. After a whole lot of grinding, wrenching, and probably a few choice words, that old rig was back on the road. A truck that should have been scrapped was rolling again, proving that nothing is too far gone if someone is willing to put in the work. Then there is that International Harvester dump truck from the 1970s. This was not just any old truck. It was a $500 special, and let us just say, it needed a lot of love. The engine was a mystery, the wiring was a mess, and the hydraulics were about as reliable as a weather forecast.
I know it looks like this is a staged, situation here, but believe it or not, this is organic. I think this is the definition of organic.
But piece by piece, Matt sorted it all out, getting the motor humming, the electrics in order, and the hydraulics back in action. Now, instead of rusting away in some forgotten lot, this truck is hauling loads like it is brand new. And then there is the Galleon 503 road grader from the 1950s. Imagine something that has been abandoned for years, sitting in the elements, slowly being swallowed by time. Most people would see a pile of metal. Matt saw a challenge. The engine needed work. The hydraulics were shot, and rust had taken over. But he was not about to let that stop him. Bit by bit, he chipped away at the problems, getting the grader running again and proving once more that old iron deserves a second chance. Not to be outdone, there was also a Caterpillar 977 track loader that had been rusting away in a junkyard for over 10 years. This beast was not just neglected, it was on its way to becoming part of the earth. But Matt got to work, tearing into the engine, fixing up the undercarriage and making sure the operator's cabin was not just a rusty cage. By the time he was done, the loader was not just running. It was ready to get to work again, just like it was meant to. And then there was that auction crane truck, a $700 gamble that most people would not even take a second look at. The engine was locked up, and the whole thing was a mechanical nightmare. But where others saw a lost cause, Matt saw potential. He tore into that seized-up Ford Big Block V8 right there at the auction site, refusing to let it stay dead. One problem at a time, he worked through the issues, turning what was basically scrap into a working, lifting, rolling machine that earned its keep on his homestead.
As you may or may not have been able to hear, that didn't go as scripted. I was gonna leave the bucket up in the air and give you a nice walk around, but as soon as I got up to full tilt.
Another gem was an Alice Chalmers propane forklift, a marketplace find that needed more than just a tune-up. The engine was struggling, the hydraulics were tired, and let us just say it was not winning any beauty contests. But with some elbow grease and mechanical know-how, Matt turned that sad little lift into a solid workhorse, moving heavy loads like it was fresh off the factory floor. And then there was the 35-ton lowboy trailer. This was not a simple fix. It had serious structural issues. Welding, fabricating, and more than a little patience were needed to get it back in shape. By the time he was finished, the trailer was not just functional, it was ready to haul some serious weight, just like it was built to do. Last but not least, there was that massive Clark wheel loader. This thing had been sitting so long, it was practically a monument to forgotten machinery. But Matt is not one to back down from a challenge. He tackled the engine issues, fought through hydraulic leaks, and rewired what needed rewiring. The loader was not just running, it was ready to take on work again, a reminder that nothing is truly junk if someone knows how to fix it. Just when it seemed like nothing could top his last project, Matt found even bigger challenges waiting for him. Reviving history one rust bucket at a time. First up, there's that 1951 autocar single-axle truck. This thing was a wreck when Matt got it. Hadn't moved in who knows how long. It needed just about everything fixed, from the engine to the brakes to the body. A pile of rust and broken parts turned into a good-looking, roadworthy truck again, all thanks to Matt putting in the work. He tackled each issue one by one, making sure every component was working like it should. The brake system was completely shot, so he rebuilt it, ensuring the truck could actually stop when needed. The engine wasn't far from being scrap metal, but with some deep cleaning, part replacements, and adjustments, it roared back to life. Then there was that beat-up Kobelco excavator. It had been sitting way too long and wasn't in any condition to dig a thing. Hydraulics? Messed up. Engine? Not working. Frame? Needed help. But Matt wasn't about to let it sit there rotting. He ripped into it, got the fluids flowing again, and patched up whatever was broken. By the time he was done, that excavator was back in business, ready to move some dirt like it was meant to. He had to replace hoses, clean out the hydraulic system, and track down some leaks that had been neglected for years. The engine needed more than just a tune-up. It had to be partially rebuilt to get everything back in order. The undercarriage was another headache, requiring attention to ensure it wouldn't break apart the moment it started working again. Another machine that got a second chance was a medium-sized Komatsu excavator. It had been left for dead, completely useless. No way it was doing any work in that condition. But after a deep dive into the engine, fixing up the hydraulics, and getting all the little parts squared away, Matt had it running smooth again. Not just running, but actually working like it should. He had to deal with fuel system problems, a stubborn hydraulic pump, and wiring that had been chewed up by time and neglect. The final test run proved it wasn't just moving, it was fully functional and ready to dig. Then there was the 1970s autocar two-axle truck. Unlike some of the other wrecks Matt's taken on, this one could still move, but it looked rough and some parts weren't in the best shape. Matt gave it a solid refresh, taking care of paint, fixing up the inside, and tweaking a few mechanical issues. After he was done, the truck looked and ran better than it had in decades. The interior was a disaster, so he pulled everything apart, cleaned up the dashboard, fixed the gauges, and even found replacement seats that didn't look like they had been through a war. The exterior got a fresh coat of paint, making it look sharp again. He even swapped out some old, unreliable wiring, making sure the truck wasn't a ticking time bomb of electrical problems. Another interesting find was a Kubota light tower. Picked it up from an auction, but surprise, it didn't work. would have been useless if Matt hadn't stepped in to fix the engine and sort out the electrical issues.
4 or 5 o'clock, well, your day's about to get worse usually. So anyways, what this thing is a tow-behind generator essentially with a light tower that folds up and telescopes way up in the air. And you've probably seen these things on highway jobs or any roadwork sites that are working after dark.
Now, it lights up his shipping container workshop like a charm. The small diesel engine was barely hanging on, and after a full teardown, it was clear that half the components needed replacing. Once that was handled, the wiring was next. Corroded connectors, missing fuses, and bad switches were all swapped out. After all that effort, the lights fired up, and now it's an essential part of his shop setup. He also got his hands on a 1950s Galleon 503 road grader. This thing had been sitting out, neglected, and barely holding together. Engine, done for. Hydraulics, a disaster. Structural issues, of course, but none of that stopped Matt. He got into it, piece by piece, until the grader was running and ready to level out roads again. It's one thing to fix an old truck, but reviving something like this grader? That takes real patience. He had to source rare parts, custom fabricate some components, and go through endless adjustments to make sure it was running as intended. It wasn't just a quick fix. It was a full-scale restoration that took hours of work. One of the more serious builds was the military M923 6x6 truck. It was a massive beast of a vehicle, but when Matt got it, it was a paperweight. Wasn't running, wasn't stopping, wasn't doing much of anything. He went all in, fixing up the diesel engine, making sure the transmission was solid, and giving the brakes the attention they desperately needed. When he was finished, that military truck wasn't just back to life. It was hauling loads around his property like it was fresh out of service. It took a full fuel system cleaning, new injectors, and a heavy-duty brake overhaul to get everything back in order. The frame needed some serious work, and Matt wasn't afraid to put in the time to get it right. And let's not forget that Caterpillar D6 dozer. Now, this wasn't just an old machine that needed a little love. This thing had a seized-up diesel engine. If an engine stuck like that, most people would call it done. Not Matt. He took it apart, piece by piece, cleaned up everything inside, replaced the parts that needed it, and somehow managed to get that thing running again. A dozer that hadn't moved in years was suddenly ready to push dirt like it was made to do. The tracks were rusted solid, the blade hydraulics barely functioned, and half the components had to be reworked. But after all that effort, it went from being a useless hunk of metal to a fully operational machine once again. So, after all that work, these machines went from scrap to workhorses. But are rebuilds truly worth it, or just money pits? Like, comment, and subscribe to let me know.